Thank you. Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be chairing this webinar today. We're going to look at adult social care honours nominations, and we've got a fantastic packed agenda to both explain the honour system to you and how you can get involved in nominating people for that, and also to hear from some people from across the sector about the different elements of the sector where nominations might be received. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. So I'm very pleased to be chairing this. As I say, my name is Vic Rayner. I'm the current chair of the Care Provider Alliance, and my day job is Chief Exec of the National Care Forum. I'm also pleased that we will have Gavi Hurd with us, who is the Adult Social Care Engagement and Honours Advisor, and Gavi will be giving you the detailed information about exactly what's involved in nominating somebody for the honour system, timescales, how to produce citations and evidence, etc. We're then going to hear from the amazing Deb Sturdy, our Chief Nurse for Adult Social Care, and she's going to tell us a little bit about some of the work of professionals within the sector and how we can get that recognised. Dr. Clinton Farquharson is going to talk to us about how we can ensure that people who draw on care and support and unpaid carers are recognised within the honour system. James Bullion is going to tell us about how we can recognise the role of local authority colleagues, and James is the Interim Chief Inspector of Adult Social Care and Integrated Care. And I'm going to focus a little bit about care providers as well. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. For those of you who are watching, you will see a Q&A button. If you can put questions into that, we will pick those up and address those towards the end of the webinar. And this session will be being recorded, and we will be able to send that out, including the slides, to those who have attended or registered to be part of it. And it will hopefully go on our Care Provider Alliance website as well, so there'll be a chance to go back and review it. So with that in mind, unless there's anything else I've forgotten from my esteemed panel, give me a nudge. But if not, we'll move on, and I will come off screen, and my colleague Gavi will start to tell you all about what we need to do. So over to you, Gavi. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks Vic. As Vic says, I'm an engagement and honours advisor at the Department of Health and Social Care, and I'm going to run through some information on the honours process and how you can make nominations yourselves. There's quite a lot of information here, so I will try and be fairly quick, but don't worry if you miss anything. We'll be able to access these slides afterwards and some additional resources. So if you could just go on to the first slide, please, and the one after that, please. Perfect. So for anyone who is less familiar, I'll just start with a brief overview of what the honours system and awards involve. So it's a system that recognises people who have made outstanding contributions to public life. Honours are decided by subject-based committees. So for example, there are committees for arts and media, and of course for health and social care. People can receive awards for a real range of work, which includes the examples on screen, like improving people's lives and long-term voluntary services, things like making a difference in their community and driving innovation. If we could move on to the next slide, please. We're often asked about who can actually be nominated, and I think that there's a real perception that the honours are really exclusive. The truth is that although it is a very, very competitive process to be awarded one, anyone can be nominated as long as you can show that they've made these outstanding and exceptional contributions that merit an award. And also anyone can make a nomination, yourselves included. You don't have to be part of a large organisation or anything like that. On screen are some areas that we are commonly asked about, which I can run through quickly. So people who've previously received an award can get one again, as long as it is for a higher level. So, for example, someone who's received an MB could receive an OB afterwards because this is a higher level. But it's generally a good idea to wait about 5 years between nominations to make sure that there's a big chunk of work that they can be recognised for, separate to the first award. You also don't have to be British to either nominate someone or actually receive an award. We just need to know the nationality of the person that you're nominating, if they're not British or if they have dual nationality or anything like that. The two areas at the bottom here are good to be aware of as well. So unfortunately, honours can't be awarded after someone has passed away. The only exception to this is if they have already been offered the award and have accepted it. So if you're aware that someone is, for example, terminally ill, you can let us know when you submit the nomination and we'll make sure that people are aware of this. For people who are retiring, nominations are generally strongest when they're still actively doing their work. So if you know that someone that you want to nominate is going to retire soon, you can just make a note of this and we'll make sure that we are aware of it and this is passed on to the right people so that we can just keep in mind that they're going to be finishing up their work fairly soon. Besides the categories on screen, I just want to really reiterate that honours awards are something that hardworking people from all walks of life can receive. And there will be some discussion later of people that have received awards to show you some examples. If we could move on to the next slide, please. So another area that I wanted to touch on quickly is what the different levels of award are actually for. So on screen, you can see the 5 levels of award that people can be nominated at, from being made a knight or a dame to the medals at the bottom right there. So one of the key differences between these is the scope of work. So if you look in the boxes, you can see that at knighthood and damehood level and CBE level, they have made national level contributions. For knighthoods and damehoods, this can also sometimes be international too. At OBE, it's generally regional, but it can be a bit broader. It's not strictly these things, but often that is kind of the general scope. And at MBE and BEM at the bottom there, it tends to be a local sort of level of work. In every single one of these categories, though, people really do stand out as examples. They're really well respected for their work, and they've gone above and beyond the expectations of what people would normally do in their role. Of course, there's kind of more to the categories than this. And at the very end of the slide pack, there's a really, really detailed slide which has loads and loads of information and some examples of the job types that people might do at each level of award. So the slides will be shared with you and you can take a look at that afterwards. If we could just go on to the next slide, please. We're also often asked about the deadlines for actually submitting a nomination. And we don't actually have sort of set deadlines that they have to be submitted by. It's just useful to kind of bear in mind some of the dates on screen here, which correlate to the 2 honours lists released each year for New Year's and for the King's birthday. So to ensure that a nomination can be considered for the next New Year's honours list, it would need to be submitted by the end of February. And for the next birthday list, it has to be submitted by the end of August. You can submit them at any point between these. It's not that it has to be submitted in February or August. Those are the kind of cut-off points for the next rounds, but it's not something to be kind of too worried about generally. If you are aiming for one of these dates, it's helpful if you can submit the nomination a little bit before this, and we can read through it, talk through ways to strengthen it, and determine if it needs any more information at this point. But as I said, if you don't make these cut-off points, it would generally just go into the next round for consideration. If we could go on to the next slide, please. So how do you actually make a nomination is the main question that people have. And to make a nomination, there's first and foremost a form that you have to fill out, which we will share with you. This includes some personal details about the nominee and about you yourself as the nominator too. So you might not have access to all of the information that the nominee that you need. And you can do things like speak to the HR department where they work to get this information. Honours are actually exempt from GDPR, so it's fine for their HR, for example, to share this data with you, which can include things like gender and ethnicity, and they are quite sensitive. So you just have to make sure that anyone that you speak to is aware that it's a really confidential process and that they should not share this information any further. The form then includes a long citation, which is basically a short essay about the person that you're nominating and the amazing work that they've done. But I'll go into more detail on that on the next slide. it's really, really helpful if you have support from senior members of the organisation or their employer. And this could just be confirming that they have support for the nomination and are happy to be listed on the form. And sometimes it can be that they actually write something that is going to go into your citation to support it as well. You should submit the form using the email on the slide, which will also be shared later with you. It's aschonours@dhsc.gov.uk. And when you submit it, you can suggest to us the level of award that you think is right if you want to, but that's not essential. It can just give us an idea of what you're aiming for. You can also reach out to that email at any stage to ask questions too. Writing the long citation is kind of the single most important part of your nomination, and it's where you put all of the information that shows your nominee deserves an award. There is a limit of 2,700 characters, including spaces. And this is not 2,700 words, as sometimes this does get confused. And unfortunately, we can't accept nominations that are over that limit. There's also a section for voluntary and charitable contributions right at the bottom of the form. And this does actually count at the 2,700 character limit. It's completely optional and you don't have to put anything in here if you don't think it makes sense to. Sometimes it could be that your nominees, most of their work has been voluntary or charitable, so you can just write about it in the main citation as well. And at the bottom here are some really important top tips. So firstly, avoiding jargon is really, really helpful. Jargon can make it much harder to read your citation for people who are less familiar with the area that your nominee is working in, or are maybe less familiar with social care generally. And finally, supporting evidence. So figures and statistics, for example, are a really, really good way to do this. This is one of the most important things to do for your nomination, as it's how you really prove that your nominee has made a difference. And without the supporting evidence, there's not as strong a case to show this. It just really reiterates that there's kind of concrete ways to show that this is what happened first, and this is what they've done, and this is the result. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so as I said, the supporting evidence that shows how the nominee has made a difference is really crucial. This is sometimes also referred to as impact and providing examples of impact. So on screen are some helpful questions that you can think about when you're getting ready to write the nomination, and they can kind of guide your thinking as to where that impact has been and how you can show it. So for example, what were things like before the nominee began their work versus what are things like today? Can you imagine these things happening without the impact of your nominee, the input, sorry, of your nominee? To what extent do peers really respect and value the work that they've done? And providing some information on the wider context of their work and why it's really important. If we could just go on to the next slide, please. We've also got a sort of suggested structure for your citation here. This isn't mandatory, but if you're not really sure about how to approach it, this can be a good place to start. So first of all is a summary, where it's good to start by summarising the kind of most compelling reasons for the nomination and indicating the scope of work as well. So for example, you could say something like, this person is nominated for their really dedicated hard work, improving the standards and quality in care homes across a local area, or something along those lines. Next would be the contribution. Thank you. Here you can show what they've done to go above and beyond their day job. So this could be where they've specifically made a difference, and also indicating when their work actually took place. And now if we could go on to the next one. So third, you can add in the detailed examples and the evidence that support this. So for example, facts, figures and publications. These can be then used to show how the person has earned this respect, how they've produced change, how they've made things better, and how they've done things like, for example, raise money for charities or research. And finally, you can include any additional information, including using the voluntary section if it's relevant. It's also good right at the end here to put in some concluding sentences to summarise why they deserve the nomination and just kind of tie things up nicely. If we could go on to the next slide, please. So when you've actually submitted your nomination, we will let you know that we've received it, and we might contact you for some more information or to ask some follow-up questions. For the nomination to be awarded, it has to go up through multiple stages of committees, and this does take time. we can't really update you throughout this process on where your nomination is. The only time that we might do this is, for example, your nominee could be seen and discussed by a committee, and they might suggest some ways that we could make it stronger, or ways that it could be improved with some extra information to really make things clear and help it progress to the next stage. So this is often the point where we might reach out to you for some additional information to help your nomination progress. It is really important, though, just to remember that it's not a rapid process, and you often don't find things out quickly, as nominations are considered over a few rounds generally. So, for example, you could submit a nomination before the birthday 2026 deadline. It could be seen by a committee and they would like it to have some extra information. So we'll go out to some people, we'll go out to some organisations and look to source that information, add it into your nomination and resubmit it for the next round. And that's really not an uncommon thing to happen. It's not odd for it to take a little while for a successful award to be made. So it's not something to really worry about if you don't hit in that first list that's published after your nomination has gone in. The Cabinet Office would then contact people who have been successfully awarded, and they will be asked if they want to accept the nomination. The people who have made nominations would need to check with the published lists to see if their nomination has been successful, as we just aren't able to provide the updates and information on where in the process your nomination is, whether it's been successful or whether we think it's likely to be awarded at any point in that process. But I popped on screen here the link for where you can access those lists, so you can see them on the gov.uk website, and they're also published online in the Gazette too. And if we just go on to the final slide. So lastly, I just wanted to really outline the things that we can help you with, because I'm aware that this is a process that a lot of people aren't familiar with, but we can help you kind of throughout. So we can help you to get support from organisations and people who know your nominee. We can help you to get the information and contributions that would actually form your nomination. So we can reach out to people and ask them to write something about the person that you're nominating, especially if it's an area that you're not familiar with yourself. And we understand that, especially if you're not part of a larger organisation, or if you're trying to do this on your own, it can be difficult to know where to start here. So we can support you and help you to reach out to people throughout. We can also help you with parts of writing the nomination. We can't write it for you per se, but we can help you to combine things together. So if you had contributions from a few people, we can help you actually put those together into one nomination. And we can also help with things like proofreading and editing at any point too. And we can provide information and support at any point throughout the process if you're unsure, whether over an email or over a call. It's kind of whatever's best for you. You just contact us at the aschonours.gov.uk email, and we'll try and answer all of your questions and get a call set up if needed. And so I'm aware I've gone through quite a lot of information there. There is a Q&A, so if you do have any questions, you can just pop them in there and we can go through them at the end. But I think I will hand back over to Vic now.
Thank you, Gabby. That's hugely helpful. And as you say, lots of information, but also hopefully the reassuring thing for people is to hear that there's also help available. So a chance, if you've got somebody in mind or you want to start the process, then some clear guidelines to do that. But even if you want to just reach out and connect up with the team to see how to get started, then really encourage you to do that. So what we thought we would do now is, as we've got colleagues here who are going to tell us a little bit about the system through the lens of particular cohorts of people who might be suitable for you to nominate, or who you might have in mind for nominations. And I think this is why we particularly wanted to do this webinar, because we have so many people across the social care sector, working in the sector, drawing on care and support, unpaid carers, so many amazing people involved, and we want to make sure that they are properly represented in the honours nominations. So Dr. Clinton Farquharson, who is himself a CBE, I think I've got that right, Clinton, is going to give us a focus on people who draw on care and support and unpaid carers. And Clinton, I'm particularly interested in, in conversations we've had in advance of this. We know that the Prime Minister has got a strong focus around diversity in relation to nominations for overall honours nominations. And I think we're so privileged in this sector to have such a diverse range of people. And I just think, as part of your input, whether you've got any thoughts on how to ensure diversity in relation to ensuring both people who draw on care and support and broader nominees are part of what people put forward. So over to you, Clinton.
Thank you very much, Gabby and Vic. And honouring leadership from lived experience, and especially from people who draw on care and support and unpaid carers. We've just heard how the honours system works, the levels, the process, and the purpose. I want to speak to why it matters, especially for people who draw on care and support and unpaid carers. Too often, these are the people and the system relies on most, but recognise the least. Diversity in the honour system is important, and the impact, and they hold families together. They build movements for change, and they turn lived experience into leadership and personal adversity into public good. So the honouring them isn't just a gesture of thanks, it's a shift in who we value and why. Because when we recognise people like Elizabeth Toll and Anna Sebright, Jan Blackwell and Dr. Amajit Raju, we're not just celebrating individuals, we're redefining what leadership in social care looks like. And we are saying lived experience isn't less, it's expertise, it's visionary, and it belongs on the national stage. So let me share 4 stories, and I call them stories and experiences, not case studies. The catalyst for diversity of experience and lifting up people who draw on care and support and unpaid carers. If we could go to the first slide, please. If we think about honouring unpaid carers because they hold the system up. Elizabeth Caroline Toll received a BMEB for carer since 1994 and part of the Carers UK ambassador since 2014. And Elizabeth turned experience into action and helped others to be seen, supported, and valued. And her BEM, it sends a powerful message that care isn't just a private struggle, it's a public contribution, and it's not charity, it's infrastructure. And unpaid carers hold up the system, and it's time we hold them up too. If we go to the second slide. Thank you. Recognising us as leaders is Anna Sebright, who received an OBE, and she's a disabled campaigner, a doctor, and a co-convener of Social Care Futures. And Anna's lived experience shapes national policy and inspires public imagination. And she's not just calling for change, she's designing and knowing her challenges, the outdated divide between lived and learned experience. And because her lived experience is leadership, especially when it's building a future of care and support. If we go to the third slide, lived experience is not lesser experience. And Jen Blackwell, who received the BEME, a founder of Down syndrome, a leader, a choreographer, a force of joy. And Jen, who has Down syndrome, didn't wait for permission. She created a platform and disability-led and radically inclusive and full of life. And her honour is not a token; it's a truth. People with learning disabilities don't just participate; they lead. Lived experience, like I said, isn't lesser. It's the lens through which real inclusion comes alive and speaks to diversity. If we go to the fourth slide, and this is Dr. Amjad Raju, known to his friends as AMO, who received OBE. He's a disabled CEO and advocate and a champion for carers and mental health. And his leadership is values-led and people-powered and rooted in justice. And when we honoured Amjad or Amu to his friends, we shaped the stories of who counts as public servants, heroes. And if we want a future that's more just or more inclusive and more human, let's honour the people that are already building it. And that's what the impact and real diversity of the honour systems can do. And if I hand back over to you, Vic, thank you.
All right, take myself off mute. Thank you so much, Clinton. And it's just great to hear those stories, to hear about the people who have been drawing on care and support and unpaid carers. And I think that notion of the honour system being a way of redefining public service heroes and telling the stories of people who've turned their adversity into public good is hugely powerful and a really important reminder of why we all can do so much to recognise those contributions and to elevate them through this system. Now, we're going to go on in a second, but I just wanted to note that Jenny has started the ball rolling. So thank you to you, Jenny, for putting a question into the chat. I'm going to suggest we come back to those towards the end. But if you are, if you like those, if you want to look at the questions that are in there, and you can like them and interact with them, and that'll make sure we answer them, but also put additional ones in as they come to you, because there's lots of detail, rich detail in here. So thank you to Jenny for getting the ball rolling, and we'll come back to her question once we've concluded these intersections. So we're going to go on to Deb Sturdy, who is herself a CBE, and Deb is going to focus on celebrating our nurses and healthcare staff. And Deb, we've often talked about just what extraordinary people there are across the sector, and I know you're such an amazing champion of the social care nurses, and I guess the challenge with all of this is about being really clear that this is about people who contribute more than the day job. It's not undermining the day job, but it's about recognising that this hugely significant contribution that people make who are doing that much more, and we all know those people, and I think this is our opportunity to recognise and value them. So look forward to hearing what you've got to say. Thank you, Deb.
Lovely, thanks, Vic. Really good to be here this morning. I've sat on one of these committees for just over 4 years now, and it's one of the things that frustrates me about it is that as a sector, we've got great imposter syndrome, we're not great at nominating people. So this is such an important event this morning to encourage you to nominate colleagues. And when you do see great citations coming through, it is truly lifts you up. On all those kind of dark days, there are such exceptional people working in social care, but I do think we suffer from that imposter syndrome. And I think one of the challenges is the opportunities in social care, unlike from a nursing perspective, unlike kind of career structures in the NHS where there's a pathway to very senior positions where people are influencing on a national stage, are less in our world. So one of the things that I note in my experience of looking at honours nominations is the thing that's critical is actually the impact of evidence. So being able to substantiate what people said, so that evidence bit is really important. And that's not about producing lots of statistics or that, but being able to give a coherent story about somebody. And I think the fact that Gavi is there to support people kind of hone in on really important information is extremely helpful. And I've certainly signposted people in her direction and other colleagues to help with that, so we can get this as right as we can. So I would just encourage you to really think about impact and evidence when you're writing your citations. We have so many amazing, we've talked about, there's so many amazing people that work in social care. So to be able to nominate colleagues is a privilege in itself. And I certainly spent a lot of my time encouraging lots of people. But as Vic said, this is not about the day job. There are lots of people doing exceptional things. There's other awards people can apply for, the Chief Nurse Awards being one of them. That's not just for nurses, it's for anybody who works in social care. So there are other avenues to pursue, but for these honours, I just want to talk about two people, and there are lots of nurses I know currently going through the system and lots of people who have received honours, but I'm just going to focus on two. So Rachel, can you put the first slide up? So the first person I just wanted to talk about is Joanne Wilson, MBE. Joanne is a manager at the Royal British Legion Care Home in Warwickshire. She's been a care home manager there for many, many years, but it's not, again, like doing the day job. Joanne has developed that service, built really strong community connections around a day service, looking at younger veterans, looking at people who just need to come into that day service, that kind of companionship, as well as that really focused care. They've been an outstanding home. She's driven her staff to just carry on achieving. So there's consistency in how she's actually developed her service. So she's demonstrated not only that she's a fantastic care home manager and registered manager in that service, but her impact within her community. And that's what we're looking for, and her connectivity, obviously, within that veteran community. So those are the sorts of people that are doing something above and beyond. And I know, and you will know, there are lots of people like that in social care. It's just let's get those people nominated. But she's a great example, and has gone on to build that connectivity as well beyond that into professional networks. So she's been part of professional nursing networks locally and now nationally as one of the co-chairs of the Social Care Nurse Advisory Councils, but that came after her MBE nomination and award. So those are the kind of people that just don't do the day job but go above and beyond and particularly impactful within their community. Next slide, please. And then Barbara Johnson. Barbara is the Director of Nursing for Rysdale Care up in Cumbria. Barbara is a force to be reckoned with. She has her tenacity in driving change, not only again within the service, they have two big homes there, but working within her community. So recognising that need for a kind of growing workforce, she went and literally sat outside the door her local higher education institute, and got them to support developing nurses, developing healthcare assistants. They directly employed somebody to support particularly their young, well, actually all ages, but particularly their younger staff, in terms of maths and English, to help them get that kind of academic attainment, to feel confident to go on and becoming nurse associates and into being registered nurses. Her kind of tenacity in driving that forward, recognising young people in the community needed career opportunities. And when I've been to visit, spoke to two young people where her influence in, these are two young women who were written off at school had various kind of anxiety issues, and absolute no self-esteem, and how she helped build those young people into becoming carers and now on pathways to become registered nurses. So again, it's not just what she did as a great leader within her organisation, it's what she's done beyond that within her local community, and her relentlessness. And in fact, she phoned me last week and gave me an ear bashing about her continued drive for change and improvement. So she's another great example, and I can name others. Zoe Fry, who is one of the directors at the Outstanding Society, who's really been pushing for change at a national level. Tina Jed, who is somebody who's worked across one of the systems, the ICB systems in London, supporting the development of nursing practice within care homes. It's those kind of people that just go above and beyond. And just back to Clenton's bit about Jen Blackwell, I went to visit that service some time ago, and I was utterly blown away with her kind of ability to affect change, and with a lot of support. But she has absolutely been instrumental in that. And we've seen other people with learning disability be nominated, another service I went to visit. So it really has to be and should be a really inclusive approach to honours. And I think we are all stewards in the time we spend in roles like this, in trying to encourage people to nominate and actually duly recognise the fantastic stuff that happens in social care. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deb. That's brilliant to hear those stories, and of course your brilliant wider knowledge of all the other amazing nurses that are out there in the social care sector and other professional roles in occupational therapy, social work, other areas, which the honours system absolutely is there to recognise. And I think the contributions of those that you've highlighted are huge. And I just wanted to explain a little bit that some of the people that we are putting forward and showcasing in today's webinar are those who have received recognition in the last couple of years. There is, of course, a lot wider cohort of people, but we thought that this would be a great way to just showcase, even in the last couple of years, just the very many different people and different roles and expertise that have been brought forward in the system. So I'm going to, I think now, if we could go on to the next slide, Rachel. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about providers in my sort of role as chair of the CPA and the National Care Forum. So if we go on, what we're going to do here is just recognise 3 people who have received honours in the last couple of years, and as a way, in a sense, to showcase some of the diversity of both provider types, size, and roles. So this is Liz White, who was awarded an MBE. She's the COVID-19 and Quality Projects Lead for HC1. So everybody who has worked in the sector will have an understanding of what taking on a role around COVID-19, particularly how challenging and difficult that was. And for Liz, she was doing that across HC1, the largest provider across the country. So I think the ability of the honour system to recognise the contribution of Liz is enormous. And of course, I think sometimes in these, Deb talked about imposter syndrome. And of course, part of the challenge, particularly in provider organisations, is that these are people who are leading a team. They're not delivering this alone. They are receiving a team. And you'll often hear people who are nominated in this context say, this is in recognition of the whole team. But you'll remember from Gavi's slides at the beginning, this sort of sense when you're writing a citation to think, well, would this have happened without this individual? And it is right that Liz's contribution is recognised in here, as well as it acknowledging whatever the rest of the team did, but it was her leadership, and the difference that she made that's being acknowledged. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So this is Margaret Waring, who's awarded a BEM. She has worked for many years, 35 years, working in care, and has substantially contributed to the Portland charity, which works with people with young people with disabilities. So the sort of contribution that somebody like Margaret has made will have changed and made a difference to hundreds of people's lives within a defined community. So you've got sort of these coexisting sort of recognitions of somebody working in a very large national and cross-country organisation like HC1, and then somebody like Margaret who's working within a defined community and making really vital difference to individual people's lives. And it's great she's been recognised for that. And then the final slide in relation to providers is Rosemary. And Rosemary is somebody who has offered exceptional service to the health and social care sector. She has worked in home care, she ran her own care home, and when she got to the end of wanting to run that home, partly out of a recognition, feeling that the care and support sector wasn't being supported enough, she didn't just hang up her heels and go. She decided that she would make a difference by contributing it and setting up and helping with the Care Association. So she's worked throughout the system, and she has been recognised for that. Again, she's worked in a particular part of the country primarily, and that's but she has made a phenomenal contribution across the piece. And she's now working within that role as a trustee, which is another important contribution that we want to make sure is recognised within the social care sector. So I'm going to finally hand over now to James Bullion, who is also a CBE. And James is currently the Interim Chief Inspector of Adult Social Care and Integrated Care. And many of you will also know James from his previous roles, where he's worked as a Director of Adult Social Services and also the President of the Association of the Director of Adult Social Services. So James, over to you to talk about local authorities, and particularly, I think, one of the things that's really important to pick up in nominations for all nominees, but great to recognise in local authorities, is the impact that those individuals have and how to quantify that and how to reflect on that in nominations. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic, and hello. Great to be here. And in my day job at the Care Quality Commission, we come across, formally speaking, as we assess local councils, we come across good work going on at all levels, actually, whatever the final rating of a council might be. And what we also find is that good work is often rather secret and not really spoken about on a wider basis than perhaps going on within that local authority. And we come across really good examples of good stuff and the good people behind that. So I've got 3 examples of where people's work has had an impact. And as you say, Vic, the crucial thing here is the impact on people. So it's the relationship between the actions that people are taking and what that results in and the change it results in for the people, most often that we're, as it were, serving. And my examples too include a little bit about going beyond the day job, obviously, to that exceptional work and making slightly wider impact. And it's really important that we acknowledge that and we try to gather the evidence. And as Gabby explained earlier on, there's a lot of opportunity in the citation of doing that. And it's really, really crucial that is included. So if I go on to the first example of this, it's Adam McCamley, MBE. Now, this is an unsung part of local authority work, actually, data and how we use that to make a difference. But Adam's work as an analyst, really experienced. As you know, in social care, it's an area where we sometimes struggle around the data. What is it telling us and how to use it and how to make sure that it tries to make a difference to people. So Adam's work includes that regional element of not just looking in, his job, but what's the impact of that, and advising, in his case, advising the Department of Health and Social Care about how intelligence, how data and analytics can make a difference, garner the evidence, not just so what's happening, but then show what action we need to take, what different action that councils need to take to make a difference in their local community. So it has an impact on people, and in this case, it's added to the intelligence that we all have around the importance of data, and what councils should do differently, and therefore, make things better for themselves and for their local communities. So that's a really good example of that kind of regional approach for Adam. And if we move on to the next example, we've got Damien Nolan, MBE. And again, this is a really good example of the impact that local authorities have, their role as health improvement in partnership with others. So Damien, again, from a mixture of backgrounds in a social care role, a registered nurse, and leading on that health improvement type of approach and the impact that has. So taking something that is dare I say it, Deborah, sometimes seems a bit dry, how do we improve people's health locally, and then taking that into action to actually make a real difference through changing an approach to policy, making something different happen on the ground in what social workers and nurses and community workers are actually doing, often targeting people for changes in action or getting them support. And again, it's an example of not so much reasonable, but focusing down on an area and trying to make a big difference. And, in Damien's case, being the champion for change, as it were. And then the final example that I've got is where this is Elaine James, MBE, where the thing you're working on has an immediate kind of wider impact. And it's a really good example of what honours are for, actually. So this is a relatively simple idea of making sure that people with a learning disability vote in our elections. And actually, this was an unspoken area. It wasn't really talked about. But now, every election, you see examples of social workers, nurses, and other social care providers in particular, helping people to get in and participate as citizens in our democracy. And Lane's example of where you take a really championing role and that kind of clicks as an idea and spreads good practice. And this is a really good example of where that has happened with Elaine's work. So an absolutely brilliant thing to do, and you can see her holding another award associated with this, because these ideas are meant to spread, and we should promote them. So local authorities, there's hundreds of thousands of people working in local councils. They are doing good work in their day-to-day work, and it's really important that council leaders and that council officials draw those good examples out and put them forwards. Thanks, Vic.
Thank you very much, James, and thank you to everybody for their contributions. We are going to move on now to the Q&A section. So I'm going to see if we might take the slides down and invite colleagues back into the virtual room. If you can all slide yourselves in, that's lovely, and then we can see you all. So thank you very much. And what a kind of rich and diverse set of people that we've been able to recognise, and that's exactly what we're trying to achieve with this webinar, is to encourage you to think about who you might be able to get involved and who you might be able to nominate. So, Gavi, we've got a question in there from Jenny. And so if we can answer that one first. So this was a technical question, I think, about the character count for the nomination. So the question is, are contributions from others that you might gather as part of the process included in the character count?
Yes, so the answer to that would be yes. And often what we find is we'll have multiple people make contributions and the total will be far more than the character count. So that's one of the areas that we can really help you with, where it can be difficult to decide what information from each of these contributions is the most important to put in there. So we can help you narrow that down, but they would count towards the character count in the end.
So if you are in the process of thinking, right, I've got somebody in mind, I'm going to go and talk to, you know, James gave the example of leaders of the council or whoever might be putting forward things. Presumably you could still approach them and say, can you write me a supporting statement or a letter or something like that, and take the letter in its entirety, and then from that choose to pick out something. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, because quite a lot of times, you know, getting that variety of information in from people, people might repeat the same thing quite a lot of time. But if you've got, and generally, do people, do you get a sense that, and I'm sure there isn't a kind of benchmark ultimate answer, but is it better to have, you know, 4 or 5 points of view that form the longer citation rather than just one voice?
Yeah, I think it can often be really helpful because it shows the breadth of the work that the person has done. It shows that multiple people can attest to the work that they've done being really important as well. So we often will have a nomination that has input from various different areas. So sometimes they'll have input from a local authority and they'll have input from providers locally, all supporting the same nomination. It doesn't even have to be confined to the area that they work in.
Yes. Okay, that's very helpful. And that, Clinton, I'm particularly thinking about that for people who are drawing on care and support and unpaid carers, because it's a bit more straightforward to think about a council where you've got obvious roles that you could ask to support citation. So have you got any thoughts about how people could think about that if they've got somebody in mind who's either drawing on care and support or an unpaid carer?
For me, I think Gavi talked earlier about the support that could be offered. I think the best thing would be to get in contact to see what support and help, because most people who draw on care and support or who's nominating somebody won't have that infrastructure of organisations to support, to contribute. But I think the best thing is get in contact, see what the department and Gavi's team can offer in support.
Is there anything that people might be thinking about in terms of, oh, well, I don't know if I'm the right person to do this, to get the ball rolling? Any thoughts, Deb, from your point of view, about if people are worried about whether they've got not the right to do it, but, you know, I'm not going to do it because probably somebody else has already got that going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, you know, my whole career has been don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. So I think there's that thing about just be a bit fearless about it, and just, you know, if you think, and it might be then when it lands, and take some advice from Gavi and the team, but it might be that somebody might already be in that pipeline, and it might be adding value to what's already the train's sat around. So it can literally be anybody who nominates. So it doesn't, your seniority in the system is not relevant. However, what I would say is back to the previous point, really, getting others to support it might be really helpful. So seeking out peers and colleagues to, confidentially, trusted colleagues that you can have that confidential conversation about, because, back to Gabby's earlier, this is a completely, confidential process. So, but anybody, your seniority should not stop you nominating people, and in fact, I think that encourages diversity by actually anybody doing it, not just people sitting in senior jobs.
Yeah, thank you. And James, I know one of the conversations we've had about this has been recognising that this is going into Gabby and the team, who are a health and social care team as a whole. So actually, we're trying to elevate the role of social care colleagues or people who are drawing on care and support or unpaid carers, and you were particularly focused in on impact. And I think sometimes there's a risk, isn't there, that it's a bit more straightforward to perhaps think about impact in terms of health terms, of somebody who's maybe looked at a particular area of expertise, or maybe has kind of pioneered a new approach to something or other, and we're sort of more used to discussing that in health terms perhaps, rather than we are in care terms. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Vic, actually, and health is sometimes data rich as well, so you can, as it were, evidence it easier. And if I think about social care, I think about the very, very broad nature of it, whether you're a social worker or a care worker in the formal sense, or you're doing work in social care that is in the voluntary sector or in community work. And it's really important that we don't forget that actually the breadth of social care, it expands enormously once you get beyond those statutory roles, as it were. So we should definitely, I think, try to convene in a local place, trying to bring those things through. And I would remind my local authority colleagues of their role actually in being leaders in this space, and if they haven't got an honours process, as it were, running, to try and get one going, so that local councillors, local people in the community know where to go to kind of almost get the confidence to do it themselves, or to latch onto a process that might be in existence. These processes are running out there in local authority land, actually, so people should connect with them locally, and in particular give encouragement to ourselves to lose, as it were, our inhibitions, because we are often in social care almost apologetic about the work that we're doing. We need to be more confident that actually these exceptional examples are really out there, and they should be celebrated. If it's part of rejuvenating the image of social care, actually, I feel it's a really important thing to do.
Thank you. And Deb, a last word to you, maybe about making sure that we're really clear in this webinar that this is not all about management and registration and professional, etc. So I don't know if you wanted to give a sort of last word to them.
Absolutely. And following on from James' point, it is about that widest community, and I think we have to just remember, it's about the care workers. It's about those amazing personal assistants that we hear fantastic stories about all the time. It is about absolutely everybody. And it might not be, it might be that your community worker isn't going to be made a dame or a knight, but that BEM award is a really important, valuable part of this process. So the people that are in those senior jobs who aren't actually haven't got opportunity to make that wider impact, but are making a significant impact locally. So those PA carer, as Clinton talked to, our care workforce are equally as important, and we really have to encourage that. And I'd like to see many, many more of people who are, at that level, doing those incredible roles and very important roles, actually flooding our honours system too.
Brilliant. Thank you all very much for your contributions, for your passion for ensuring that people get recognised for the amazing contributions that they do. I just wanted to reiterate just some of the very powerful words, particularly that Clinton shared with us in his presentation, but that actually what we're doing here, whether it's about reflecting people who draw on care and support, people who work in local authorities, people who are carrying out professional roles, people who are working within providers, we're reflecting what leadership in social care looks like. And that is really important, that we get both the diversity of that highlighted, and that we get the real impact that people make day in, day out to people's lives. This is about getting those individuals recognised and celebrating the contribution of social care across the country. So thank you for everything that you all do, and I hope that we will, as Deb says, get the honour system flooded with the amazing colleagues and people from across the social care sector. We will send out all the details. And there'll be a recording of this that will be shared, and we hope that you reach out to Gavi and start that nomination process rolling. So thank you again for your time. Bye-bye.